Hey VC, what's up? It's me, yours truly. Back to post a quick video here, which is actually a video response to the Mr. and the Mrs. Vinyl Gym. This is their 500 subscribers contest. First and foremost, congratulations on the 500 subs. You guys are definitely two of my faves in the VC. Love you guys to death. And you should have a lot more than that without question, but congratulations on the 500. And still looking really forward to hooking up with you guys again too. I know I've kind of mentioned that in passing a number of times, but I think sometime, maybe hopefully before kind of Christmas rolls around, maybe we can set up a time where I can come down and visit you guys. So let's get back in touch and make something happen. But this is the response to your 500 subscribers contest. Actually, before I do that, playing in the background, that's what we have there. Joni Mitchell, Blue, classic album there. But the contest here, it's basically about the 500 greatest albums list that Rolling Stone put out. And I guess what you were kind of asking was, are there any great albums that are not on the list? And that's kind of, I guess, general thoughts about the list and blah, blah, blah. So, of course, as Lazarus mentioned so pleasantly in his one of his last videos, I went overboard. Had to kind of cut myself short, but I basically kind of thought about 4 different things. I'm going to share, I guess, my feelings about the top 10 on that list, albums that got left out, albums that maybe were in but kind of got snubbed a little bit, and albums that they put in, and I think maybe it was, I kind of give them some credit, I guess, if you will. Albums that they put in that maybe a lot of people would not have put in, or maybe even put them at a higher placing than I thought they might have. So kind of giving them some credit as well. So kind of the good and bad I feel about the list. But let's start off with the top 10. Let's start off with that one. For those of you maybe that haven't seen the list yet, really quick, top 10, Beatles White Album. Number 9, Bob Dylan, Blonde on Blonde. Number 8, London Calling by The Clash. Number 7, Exile on Main Street, Rolling Stones. Number 6, Marvin Gaye, Let's Get It On, or What's Going On. Number 5, Rubber Soul. Number 4, Highly Revisited, Bob Dylan. Number 3, Revolver, Beatles. Number 2, the Beach Boys, Pet Sounds. And then number 1, they had Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band. So the first thing that jumped out at me about that list is that there's 4 Beatle albums on the list. The next thought that jumps in my mind, bullshit. Plain and simple. And I mean, and really, it's just kind of a thing where I guess the bias is just more than clear inside of that. And seeing 4 Beatles albums in the top 10 greatest albums of all time, what that means to me is you take all the albums off the White Album, Rubber Soul, and keep in mind, I have a pretty good-sized Beatles collection. I love the Beatles. I think they are from a standpoint of just a rock band, you know, music, effect on society, right place, right time, all of that. To me, they were the biggest band ever. And between them and Michael Jackson in the 80s, and maybe Elvis Presley in their biggest things ever. But what this says to me, when you have all 4 of those albums in the top 10, is that saying that when you look at all the music written in history, 60 or 70 songs of the best songs ever written in the history of all music are Beatle songs. That's just bullshit. There's no way. There is no way. And in my opinion, the White Album can be smacked, I don't know how far down the line as far as I'm concerned. Rubber Soul is probably my favorite Beatles sound in terms of their albums or whatever. But you know, even then, it's just there's no way that 4 of the best albums, music written in the history of the world, all came from one band, the Beatles. There's just no way. And so that's one of my big issues I have with the list. I'm not even going to talk about the Beach Boys being at number 2. I mean, I'm not even going to get into that rant. Excuse me, especially for those of you who know how I feel about the Beach Boys. But something that really popped in my mind, which coincided with something that happened just a month or so ago, is I subscribe to Rolling Stone magazine for about a year and a half now, and I'm officially done with it, and I'm canceling my membership, and I'm never going to subscribe to them again to buy another magazine for the rest of my life. And part of the reason why was because of the election coverage that they had in this last presidential cycle. And just reading through all the different articles they had in a few different issues, just the clear, hippie coast bias type stuff that came out in the articles, it totally disgusted me that they couldn't be more informative, and yet how they were taking that stance. And so it just kind of really played out here when I started looking at the list here doing the video. It's like it's the same thing happening here. There's just this overzealous, if you will, bias, especially towards the Beatles and bands on those lines, that other bands that they cannot step back and say, these are the bands I love the most, but here are other bands I don't like, but you can't deny these albums. And that'll kind of go into some of the ones I think that were snuffed from the list. So the top 10 alone really takes away so much credibility from this list that it's not even funny. The only thing that saved it for me was maybe 200 through 30 was a pretty darn solid list right there. So, but anyways, that's my feelings about the top 10. It's just a bunch of crap. Even at the very least, without adding anything new to the top 10, at least take Bob Dylan's Blonde on Blonde and Marvin Gaye and move them to the 2 and 3 position to fight it out with Sgt. Pepper's for number 1. But yeah, Rubber Soul, Revolver, and Sgt. Pepper's being 3 of the top 5 albums in the history of music. Let's move along. Next, I'll go into albums that got kind of snubbed within the list. Okay, so I think most of these were on the list, but I think they got snubbed in some way, shape, or form. And the first one, actually, you can definitely argue this one a bit, but the Stone Roses was on the list. I thought it got snubbed a little bit by being at 498. And when I talk about these albums being snubbed, what I'm really talking about is not that, oh, it's an album that I think is so great, so you should put it up towards the beginning of the list because I love this band or I love that album. But it was really more so when I saw the album and then saw some of the albums that came after it, it's kind of like, no, that's way better than that one. That's kind of what the snub thing came. And I thought, there were a lot of albums on the list that this one was much better than, because this was at 498, I believe. This one for sure. People try as hard as they can to never give this album the proper credit. Song for song, one of the greatest albums of all time. It cannot be denied, and for this to be on the list at 464 just was not right in my opinion. Another one that got snubbed, I thought, was Neil Young's Rust Never Sleeps. Neil Young and Crazy Horse. And one of the main reasons that I felt this one got snubbed is it came in at like 351, which I thought, that's not bad. 500 of all time. 351 is not bad. But when I was looking further down the list and saw this at 341, 10 spots higher than Neil, and then this at, what was it, at 327, almost 20 spots higher than Neil, I'm thinking, are you honestly telling me that Rust Never Sleeps, that Liz Phair and Moby put out, sorry, I'm upside down, put out a better, more solid, historic album than Neil Young's Rust Never Sleeps? Now, obviously, I love both of these. I went out and bought the CDs and I listened to them, and I love both these albums. But that just doesn't seem like a comparison there. So I just really kind of felt like this album got snubbed when I saw some of the stuff that was in front of it. And again, that's not a slam on Moby or Liz. It's more so about a great appreciation for this. It's more about this coming up, not them going down. Just to clarify, because I do love both of those artists. This is one I thought should not be on the list either, which was Chuck Berry's The Great 28. Chuck Berry belonged on the list. A number of his albums belonged on the list. It's just that a Greatest Hits did not belong on the list. Chuck Berry, to me, is one of the godfathers of rock and roll. Almost everything he did should be on the list. I just thought putting Greatest Hits and compilations on the list wasn't a good move when you're talking about greatest albums of all time. Same reason why I thought this one shouldn't be on the list. Not because this isn't song for song a fantastic album, but more so it's a greatest hits. It's a compilation, and that shouldn't be on the list. And especially when stuff like Like a Virgin is on here, which obviously is one of her biggest hits ever. But then also the album Like a Virgin is on the 500 list, so that just doesn't make sense to put compilations and greatest hits on. So those are two of the greatest albums to ever listen to, but they shouldn't be on the list because of that reason, the greatest hits reason. Michael Jackson's Thriller got totally snubbed, coming in at number 20. How this album could not be in the top 10, I have no idea. Now, forget about the fact of whether you like pop music, whether you like Michael Jackson, the whole nine. 7 of 10 of these songs, 7 of 9, I think, of the songs were in the top 10, were chart hits. And again, you're talking about Thriller, Beat It, Billie Jean, Human Nature, Wanna Be Starting Something. Some of the greatest tracks ever written, regardless of whether you like Michael Jackson or not. How this could not be fighting for a top 10 spot, I have no idea. But it was all the way at number 20. That's a snub to me. And another one here too, Led Zeppelin 4. Totally snubbed out. This came in at number 69. And there is no way in the world you're going to sit around and tell me that this is not comparable from a historic album standpoint as the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. This should have easily been in the top 10. And I would have had no problem with this, Bob Dylan's Blind on Blind, and the Beatles battling each other out for #1 album of all time. Now again, this is not an album that I can really listen to right now. I mean, especially like Stairway to Heaven. It's almost impossible to listen to that from front to back because it's just been so played out. So played out. But again, just as an album itself, it doesn't get much better than this. I mean, it just really doesn't. Levee Breaks and Rock and Roll and Black Dog, I mean, come on. But anyway, so those are some of the snubs that were on the list. Snubs that were not on the list, which again, a lot of these, I think, or a couple of these, I should say, really show this whole hippie Beatle type bias that they obviously have. Jerk-offs. But, and again, I went through the list very quick, so if some of these are on the list and I missed it, please correct me down below, but I don't think any of these were on the list. Starting off with this beast right here. Are you kidding me? This is not one of the top 50 albums of all time. If the only great song on this album was Smoke in the Water, if that was the only track, even though it's not, this album would still be worthy of a top 50 finish, top 500 finish. And it just goes to show this stupid bias that this could not be on that 500 list, that this band is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, just all of that crap. And you're telling me as an artist, you would have rather have written this album than this. In the history of music, you'd rather this be your stake than that. Again, not slamming Moby, but just talking about the greatness of this. Total BS. The lack of this on that list automatically makes the list a bunch of bull. Whew. Same thing here. Do I need to say anything? I don't think this was on the list. Do I need to say anything? This is one I would have liked to have seen creep onto the list somewhere, which is Prince's Parade. I think that was a very, very good album by him that deserved that type of accolades, as well as Purple Rain. I was really surprised not to see this one. And again, let me know if I missed it, but I don't think I saw it on the list. They did have his second album in 1999, but to not see Purple Rain was like almost as shocking to see where Def Leppard's Hysteria was on the list. And if you're going to do compilations like the Chuck Berry and Madonna, then you got to include this one if you're going to be putting in greatest hits. And this is Sam Cooke, The Man and His Music. Because they had this one on here, which was Sam Cooke Live. They did have that on the list. But every song that's on this is on this album, plus all of his other hits too. So how this one could get snuffed off the list, I don't know, if they're going to do compilations. Judas Priest, Unleashed in the East. I would like to have seen that on the list. I think that one got snubbed. And last but not least, Van Halen's 5150. This is more my wishful thinking, because I definitely think that this is a fantastic album, musically, sonically, I mean, creativity, the whole nine. So I would like to have seen this on the top 500 list. So those are the snubs that weren't on the list at all. Now let me get off the negativity and go towards the positive of albums they put on the list that I want to make sure I give them credit for. Start off here with Curtis Mayfield, Superfly. Now I knew this would probably be on the list, but I didn't realize it would be as high as 72. So I want to make sure I give them credit for putting it that high on the list. It definitely deserves it. That is a masterpiece. Kind of the same with this one here, EPMD, Strictly Business. This was at 453. I was really happy that it made the list, period, because it wasn't, I guess mainstream-wise, it wasn't a huge album, but it's definitely one of the greatest rap/hip-hop albums I think ever. And was certainly one of my favorites way back in the day, so I was glad to see they gave that some credit as well. I'll also give them credit for this one, Public Enemy, Fear of a Black Planet, which came in at 303. I knew Nations of Millions would make it in, but this is the one that they could have easily snubbed, and they didn't. And not only that, they put it, you know, up in the 300s, so I definitely give them credit for adding that one in. Same thing with Black Sabbath. I figured Paranoid would be on there, but they also included Master of Reality, which is really good. This is at number 300, so again, another very good one that they didn't snub. What else we have here? Oh, this is a good one too, The Cars. I wasn't expecting to see this one, especially at 284. So I was very, very happy to see them include that. Cars, one of the kings of the 80s. I challenge you to watch an 80s movie and not hear the song Shake It Up somewhere in there. Shake It Up, My Best Friend's Girl, Just What I Needed, or Good Times Roll. Between those four songs, I almost venture to say every single movie made in the 80s has that song in there somewhere. Tracy Chapman. I wasn't surprised to see this on the list, but I was pretty happy to see that it was at 263, so that was a very good nod to her. Same with Run DMC. This came in at 242, I believe. Good credit there. And this one I was extremely happy to see there. Eric B. and Rakim's Paid in Full. Most people that are big hip-hop fans, they give tons of credit to this album and kind of what it brought to the scene when it came out. And I think they put it at a 228, which means that they definitely acknowledge the respect of that this album deserved. So that was a very, very good positive. Same thing with Master of Puppets. I figured it would be on the list, but I didn't think they would be as high as, what was it, 167, which was very good. Because I think this album definitely deserves that top 200 ranking. So very happy to see it. And then Love Supreme, again, I knew it would be on the list, but I didn't know it would be as high as 47, I think is what it was. So I was very happy to see that one as well. So those are kind of my four different categories and everything. And again, I think the biggest thing that stands out to me, even more so than the rant that I did about the top 10, was the fact, I'm going to show it again, that this beast was not anywhere on the list. And again, I hope I just overlooked it. I don't think I did, though. But this beast was not on the list. I mean, come on. I mean, Rolling Stone, just grow up for a minute, you know, and try to actually get past your little stinking biases. I mean, Godsmack is my favorite group of all time, and I would, on a regular basis, probably listen to Godsmack more so than Deep Purple. But even though they're my favorite band and I have a strong bias against them, I would never in a million years hold up Godsmack's self-titled album and say it's better than Deep Purple's Machine Head. I mean, just grow up and get the list right. Alright, thanks VC, appreciate you letting me rant and get all that out. As always, look forward to your comments, but I'm sure there'll be plenty on this one. And we will talk to you guys soon. Alright, take care guys.